welcome back to another episode of That Video Game Podcast. I'm your host, Boston. Joining me as always is Moonpeer.
Hello.
And the Nimp.
Hello.
This is our first of two special episodes at the end of the year. We're on vacation right now. We take a little 2-week break to kind of recharge the batteries here, but still have a bunch of episodes coming for you. This week we're looking back on the year that was, 2019. We're going to talk about our top 10. We'll get into the format of that here in a second. Next week, our 2020 predictions. We look back at the hilariously wrong predictions we had for this past year, and then we make hilariously wrong predictions for the upcoming year.
Yep.
So that'll be next week. But let's talk about our top 10. If you're a brand new listener, let's go over some of the stuff here, the ground rules. We're not going to take that long. We do have a programming change here that we're going to go over here, so let's dive into it. First and most importantly, we haven't seen each other's lists. We like to keep the surprise here. Moon and I were talking pre-show about like how excited we are that we get to see, like, hear and see each other's lists, because they're usually pretty wildly divergent, and one of us played something that the other two people really want to play this year, and we're not going to spoil that surprise in any of the categories.
Yeah. In general as well, we all usually have very kind of divergent tastes in video games too.
Yeah.
Like, you two are the JRPG fools. Me and Nimp are the shoot 'em up kind of guys.
Right.
And then there's a little healthy cross section where we all mix together and mingle.
Yeah.
There's a nice Venn diagram in there somewhere.
That's right. All our circles intertwining. You know, time is a flat circle, all that good stuff.
We can all agree if there's a bar to fill, the three of us will fill it.
That's right.
Yes.
We let each person have their moment. Typically during TVGP and all the other podcasts, we're having a healthy conversation. Especially during the top 10, we kind of let each person have the floor for a little bit. No real rules on what people have in their top 10 lists. These really are our individual lists. You want to put 10 remakes on your list? Go nuts. You want to put 10 brand new, no remakes, no remasters, no, that's cool too. Whatever. 10 things you enjoyed this past year. It's not a comprehensive list of what's best this year, just what we loved the most. Sometimes we all agree on our number one, and we put the stamp on it and say that's TVGP's best. Prey 2017 was the best game that year. All of us liked it. We try not to spoil stuff. We might get into little bits of stuff here and there, but we'll try and give a little bit of a warning. So, largely, you're not listening to the giant bombcast stuff where it's like, all right, we're going to talk about this thing. Here's what happens at the ending. So
I'm looking forward to that this year based on just Death Stranding alone.
Yeah, that will be a ride. This typically includes games that come out December 2018, because we record early, to December 2019. So stuff that comes out in December, usually nothing. We kind of don't cover, but, just in the interest there. So, let's go over our list here, because Moon had a really great idea this year to kind of change up the format, keep it a little fresh, and sort of build momentum here to our big unveiling. So let's talk about the format this year. We're going to start off with Best Old Game. That is the game we loved that this year that didn't come out this year. Didn't need to come out until, it could have come out in 2002. Whatever, as long as you liked it. New category this year, 2019's Alpha Protocol.
How did I get this one in here? I don't know.
Because I love it. What I've been saying this game is, it's not your AAA game. It didn't necessarily have to come out this year either. Maybe it's not your best old game, but how I've been thinking about it is it may not be very polished, but it definitely is a diamond in the rough.
It's a flawed gem.
Yes. Honorable mentions. Those are all the games, try and keep it to about 10, all the games that we loved this year. 2018 was a really great year for games. Too many incredible ones came out. Top 10 only has 10 slots in it. So these ones got close, but didn't get in the top 10 list itself. TVGP Community Game of the Year. As we did last year, this is going to be your top 3. I guarantee you, all of these choices will surprise you. So
interesting.
Keep tuned in for that one. And then we'll talk about our top 10 of 2019, naturally going from 10 to 1, sort of going around the table as we do. We'll go through our 10s, our 9s, etc., etc.
Mhm.
So,
As
that-
a quick aside, we did also used to cover the games we missed
Yes.
category. It's something we're not doing this year, mostly because like all of us, like I think Nib counted his, it was 9.
Yeah.
Mine is 17 games that I was
Mine was
interested in
11.
playing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have 9 that I'm aware of that I missed.
right,
And-
and
We don't have the time to sit here and say I didn't play this game because of X, Y, and Z. It's mostly, it's finances, it's time, it's accidentally missed it and forgot all about it until December. Hello, Plague Tale.
and when we get into our honorable mentions and our top 10, you can kind of keep a tally of when someone will say this game and the other people go, right.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one.
That's a game we missed. So you can keep your own list at home, but in the interest of time, and we still have another episode to record after this, we're gonna sort of move right in, and we'll stop the show. We'll end the show with a showstopper. All right, I think that's all of our. I think that's all of our rules.
We think so.
Yeah, top 10 can be a little bit complicated, and we have some new listeners, so we want to make sure that we lay down the ground rules. So let's get started. Best old game, Moonpier. You're the one to start here.
I think this will come as no surprise to anybody who listens to the show on a regular basis. My old game of the year is it's got to be Dead by Daylight.
Yeah.
This is a game that I played a little bit, liked it a little bit when it came out. It might have made my top 10 the year it came out, I think, because I played it hardcore then. And then I took an, 4-year break. And then suddenly this year, the game has just sucked me back in. And I mean, I talk about this game every single week on the show. There's a reason I'm still talking about it every week on the show, because I'm playing it with the community. I'm playing it with my friends. We have a good bro time where we all sit down and have a chat and just shoot the poops about what's going on in life. And yet, also, the game literally just had brand new DLC. Just like 3 weeks ago, brand new DLC. How they have kept it alive this long is astonishing. If you want to hear me talk more about Dead by Daylight, I don't know, just listen in 2 weeks' time when I'm sure I'll be talking about it again then.
Yep. Nimp, how about your best old game?
So my best old game is Elite Dangerous.
Yeah.
And
I got my vote the year that we started the best old game.
yeah, I haven't been playing it as much recently. I've been on hiatus just because I've been waiting for the new updates to come through, because like Moon said, this is a game that's still getting updates for as old as it is. And they've got some pretty massive ones coming out, which is going to entail a lot of grinding. So I've kind of, that and having to catch up on video games for the year, I've been kind of not playing it just so that I don't burn myself out. It's going to be crazy.
Yep.
And I'm kind of scared to do that.
Yeah.
So yes, that's my best old game. What about you, Boston?
My best old game, there was only one possible choice it could have been this year, and that was Doom 2016.
Yes.
The probably would have been best game of 2016. It honestly, I've played a bunch of old games this year, and looking at my list, they were a bunch of really good old games. None of them even came close to Doom 2016. It managed to take everything that I loved about the first 2 Doom games and somehow managed to take all that stuff and modernize it without really losing the core, like the spirit of the original game, and injecting character and lore and story and mythos in it. Like, all this stuff really came together into a game that I knew I would like, but managed to end up being significantly better than I could have imagined.
Yeah.
So.
Still one of the best starting openings to a video game ever as well.
Yep.
Like that first level, that shotgun cock as you come out the elevator, it's just like, oh, chest kiss.
Yeah. So good. All right, let's talk about 2019's Alpha Protocol. Moon, what was your Alpha Protocol of 2019?
Honestly, for me, this is the game that made me suggest this category.
Okay.
This is Descenders.
Yes.
Thank you, Game Pass, for the hidden gems that you hold in your library of shame, because I cannot remember the last time I managed to get sucked into a game where I've got 2 achievements left in it. I'm probably never going to get those achievements, but I still absolutely adore playing this game. Like, it's broken on so many levels. It barely runs on Boston's like OG Xbox. We don't know if the patch has fixed that yet because he still needs to reinstall it again.
Yep.
But who would have thought to themselves, let's make a roguelike downhill mountain biking game with perks and unlockables, and you pick your own route and day to night cycles and everything else that's going on. I don't know how this works as well as it does. But oh boy, does it warms the cockles of my heart to have like Dave Mirra back in my life again, doing like, you know, kickflips is skateboarding, but doing like tail whip like 900s and all that kind of jazz, and it's like, and it's a roguelike, which, I mean, come on. Here you go, Moon, here is a game just for you.
You're welcome.
And yeah, it's broken. I have no problem admitting that. The frame rate can be hot garbage. Sometimes Boston can't even get into the game itself because the menus don't work.
That's a small team, you know.
It looks okay. It's procedurally generated, which can either be fantastic or horrifying in 2019. And yet still, every time I sit down and I scroll through my games, like, oh, I could do a couple of runs of Descenders, even though I'm up to that point now where a couple of runs is not 10 minutes anymore. A couple of runs is 2.5 hours. Like, I'm at that point still. Every time I see it, it's like, I can do it. I can play a little bit of that. Like, I can do that. So, as broken as it is, and as low budget as it is, it has to get my Alpha Protocol award. Over to you, Nimp.
So my 2019 Alpha Protocol goes to a game that came out in 2016 called Technomancer.
Yep.
Yes.
Which it's funny because it was kind of something we all decided on when I first brought this game up back when I first started on this podcast. That yes, this feels like an Alpha Protocol game. It's buggy as all get out, but it works and it's fun. And like Alpha Protocol, when I first played that game, I'm at the end of this game, and I'm still at the end of this game because I haven't picked it up again. I think I was at the end of Alpha Protocol for probably about a year before I went back to it and realized I didn't beat it and then beat it. So feels like that's where I'm heading with Technomancer again.
Yeah.
So I've got, I think, 2 more missions and it's done. So that's my 2019 Alpha Protocol, Technomancer.
When Moon suggested this brand new category, I only had one possible answer for this category, and my 2019 Alpha Protocol is the Technomancer. It is the very definition of a flawed gem. It is a B-tier Mass Effect in really fantastic and really broken ways. It shoots for the moon on so much, and half of the time it doesn't get there, and that's sort of the part of the charm of it. And I have also not finished Technomancer because it can be a little bit of a slog, but I feel like that's sort of the definition of what an Alpha Protocol is it's not perfect, and it's sometimes not good, but it really is great.
I mean, honestly, it's just missing the random dice generator in the background, and it would be Alpha Protocol on Mars.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about our honorable mentions. Moon, why don't you blow through your entire list here?
Okie
Get loose.
Yeah, get loose, get speedy. Cadence of Hyrule. Honorable mention to that. Does not make my top 10. It's a great game. It's an amazing game. It's somehow they made Crypt of the Necrodancer with Zelda music, and all of the Zelda music is legendary as it is.
Yeah.
And then they made the twists on it. It's great. I just don't love it.
Yeah.
I love the music. I just don't love the game. Supermarket Shriek. Another Game Pass gem that I was not expecting to even slightly enjoy. When a man and a goat ride a trolley together, and then you have to yell to control it. Just for like the stupidity and the ingenuity and the stupid puns and the fact that they have for you it was a Tuesday achievement, and that has made my day for like so many days this year.
Yeah.
Like full credit to that. Next, Untitled Goose Game.
Yes.
I have barely touched Untitled Goose Game. I think I've done 2, maybe 3 zones in it. I just kind of fell off it a little bit, and it's not the game's fault. Like, the game is cute and it's hilarious and it's funny when you're doing the little honks and you're in a glass jar and it just does the echo back to you. It's like, it's a game full of charm that I think it just slipped off my radar a little bit because I just don't have the time to sit down and plow through it. Speaking of Xbox Game Pass games, guess what I'll be playing over the winter break, folks?
Right.
Untitled Goose Game.
Oh.
Next one, Crackdown 3.
Yeah.
Honorable mention because it's Crackdown. Specifically, it's Crackdown 3. It's another Crackdown game.
Yep.
You knew...
Did that come out this year?
It did.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
In like January or something.
There's Tally 1 on the... Oh, yeah, that game.
No. I did play it for when
Yep.
I had the free Game Pass, but I thought that came out last year or the year before.
No,
I
real
didn't
early
realize-
this year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was like
I didn't
February
realize I was
this
actually
year.
on top of it.
Yep. It's exactly what it says on the tin. It's a Crackdown game, and for those people who love it, you will love it. And for those people who don't love it, you won't love it.
Yep.
It's more of the same, which is why it's not on my top 10. Like, that's all I can really say about it. And I love it. Don't get me wrong, Crackdown 3 is super fun to play, especially when your wife kicks a car at your face, as a good example of that. Next game, Ape Out. I played this, weirdly enough, on Game Pass for the PC. I'm throwing this on my honorable mentions because I don't think I will ever really complete this game, but mostly because if you ever want to see how music and video games can be combined into something truly special, go play the first 2 levels of Ape Out and then just uninstall it. Like, it's insane, some of the stuff that they do with that. And I would be surprised if that's not on certain websites' moments of the year lists this year.
Right.
Next, Blair Witch. Hello, Game Pass again. What are you doing here?
Ta-da.
Binaural audio in a horror game. In a genuinely terrifying horror game that I wish I would have sat down and finished because it might have made my top 10. Unfortunately, I didn't finish it. It ain't going on my top 10 this year. Kingdom Hearts 3. I fell so hard off this.
Another one of those that came out this year?
Like, this and a different game, which is on my top 10 list, came out this year, and my wife picked up one. I picked up this, thinking, I'll play that and I'll be done with it in like 3 weeks. I played it for like 2 weeks and then stopped and then haven't gone back.
Yeah.
Like, honorable mention for number 1, it existing. That's really the reason why this gets an honorable
did
mention. Yes. It can be done, folks. Honorable mention again, Legend of Bumbo.
Yeah.
A roguelike match 3 puzzle game for the PC, which we are recently just finished covering up for We Broke Like It. Go listen to those episodes if you want more in-depth information on that.
Very in-depth.
Yes. Genuinely fun game. Doesn't make it on my top 10, unfortunately. And probably my most disappointing honorable mention, because it's not on my top 10, Jedi Fallen Order. I literally played one game this week,
Right.
and it was Jedi Fallen Order. Me and Nimp spent a good 15 minutes talking to each other pre-show before the recording was happening, so sorry, patrons.
We were giddy as schoolgirls.
Yes. If you haven't seen the commercials for this game, turn it off the second you see any lightsaber show up. I don't care what it's for. You turn off those commercials
don't
and you
get
play this
spoiled.
game. Because this game has got one of the best moments in video games from like the past 5-10 years. Like, it goes up there with me with Normandy Reborn, which is probably one of my favorite moments in video games, period.
Yeah.
It has some incredible moments. While talking about it with Nimp, I believe I said the first 20 hours are too slow. Like, there is not enough character development right at the opening of that game, and then at the end of the game, they Kojima it and they give you like 3 hours of cutscenes and character development. It's like,
Tuck
coulda
into a
stuck
Wikipedia page.
you could have stuck some of that at the beginning, and I would be a lot more invested in these characters.
Right.
It's the only reason why it's not on my top 10 is because the start of it is so slow. Like, so slow.
And there's too many great games this year.
That too.
Yeah.
See, that's why you just got to play more JRPGs to build up that,
tolerance for the slowness.
Right. Only 20 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey,
your game's only 100 hours long, and 40 hours of that is the tutorial.
But that's my honorable mentions. Pass the ball over to Nip.
All right, so my honorable mentions. If you guys have listened to the show at all this year, you know that it's mostly just been me catching up in the last 4 to, 10 years of video games.
Mm-hmm. Same. It is every year. Don't worry.
Yeah. So, most of my honorable mentions are games that I've played this year, but are not exactly from this year. First one I have on the list is Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds on the 3DS.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that game. I picked it up primarily for my son and daughter to play, knowing that I would eventually get to it. And now my son and daughter just play my completed saves. So my son actually did complete his own save, but my daughter just doesn't care enough. The next 2 games are Utawari Mono, Mask of Deception, and Mask of Truth. They are visual novels with some JRPG aspects to them. Mask of Deception came out in 2015, and Mask of Truth came out in 2016. They're both really good, and I really like them because it finally completed the story that I never got to see. Because if you watch the anime, you get season 1, and there's no season 2. And season 1 is a massive cliffhanger. And the Mask of Truth visual novel covers what would have been season 2. So finally brings closure to an anime that came out years ago.
Right.
And it's really good too. If you want something to sit down and read, I played it on Vita. You can get it on PS4. They're fun games. So next is Ys 8. Loved it so much that I bought another copy from Germany so that I can play it on my PS4. After that is one that actually came out from this year, Tales of Vesperia, the definitive edition.
Yeah.
I have an issue of playing games to the end and just not finishing them, so that's where I'm at in Vesperia, where
the JRPG problem.
Yeah, go through the final dungeon and you've beaten the game. I'm like, yeah, that sounds great. And
I'm okay.
Yeah, so I'll finish that one day. Gears of War 5. I have that on this list because I just started it, and I needed to dedicate all of my time this last week as of our recording for me to finish another game. So I haven't had a chance to play anything else. But Gears of War 5, I'm far enough in it that I'm enjoying it, and I will come back to it and finish it. That's about all I have to say about that. It's another Gears game.
Yeah.
And my last one is Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Breakpoint.
Right.
It's another one where I just started playing it. I'm having a lot of fun because it's letting me do dumb, stupid stealth stuff. And I am really enjoying just how it lets me break the game.
Yeah.
Nothing like a sniper rifle and C4 to get you through the day. So that's my honorable mentions for this year. What about you, Boston?
All right, starting off with Konami Pixel Puzzle Collection.
Oh, there's tally number 2, folks.
One of the finest Picross games I have ever played, and I think my absolute recommendation for a starter Picross nonogram type of game. It starts off really easily. It has a really good tutorial. It's very, very easy to control, which sounds crazy for a...
It's easy to get wrong.
Yeah, and like it sounds crazy for a box-filling puzzle game, but it is very, very good, and it's free on your mobile device, so go check it out. Apex Legends. Apex Legends is an incredible game that I did not have time for this year, and I'm salty about it.
Nope, someone was too busy building castles in the sky.
I don't know.
Oh, sorry, running up other people's castles in the sky.
That's right. My number 3 choice is Fortnite. I don't need to talk anything about Fortnite. You already know what it is, but it finally got its dirty little hooks in me this year a little bit. So, number 4, Link's Awakening, the remake. Any other year would be in my top 10 easily. There's just I finished 21 games this year. They couldn't all make it in top 10. So I couldn't have 10 ties. So that would be abuse of power. But I think that's a really I love the original game, and this is an incredibly faithful remake of the original without changing much of it for better or for worse. And I think that's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Number 5, Dicey Dungeons.
Tally 3.
Yeah. This is a game we played on. It came out this year, and we played on We Rogue Like It this year at the sort of our 2019 selections at the end of the year here, and was fairly sure I was going to like this game, and liked it way more than I was expecting. Just kind of didn't play enough of it to sort of confidently put into my top 10. But it's absolutely a game you should play for.
And
yeah,
it's also a game that's oozing with charm as well.
Yes.
Like, it's something we covered on We Rogue Like It is certain games have a style, a charm, or whatever. That game just oozes its personality all over the screen, and it's... I mean, the mermaid takes selfies.
It's so good. Like, and I think one of the few roguelikes we've played that each character interacts with the game in significantly different ways, in interesting ways that unfortunately I don't want to take another 2 hours for this episode to talk about how cool Dicey Dungeons is. Dicey Dungeons is really great. I really recommend it. Number 6, The Legend of Bumbo. Moonpier said pretty much everything. We're just finished it up on We Rogue Like It. It's a fantastic game that just couldn't crack my top 10.
Yep.
And it's pretty incredible. We got a prequel to the Legend, or the Binding of Isaac, which is fascinating and strange. Risk of Rain 2. That came out 1.0 in 2019.
Oh, crap. Yeah, that came out too, didn't it?
Yeah. I played it a little bit. Moon and I played it on stream for a couple hours one day. It's a really great game, and somehow they made a 3D sequel to an incredible 2D roguelike, and it works.
Yep. I don't know how they did it, but they did it.
Yeah. I just didn't put enough time in it this year for it to crack my top 10 either. I think you're all seeing a sort of
a common theme.
Yeah, a recurring theme here. Super Mario Maker 2. Again, I really loved it. I'm not a big fan of the creative side, just because that is not a portion of my brain that I possess. But I like how they have taken what made the first one great, they put it on the Switch, they expanded it, and they're going to keep patching it. Just, again, not enough time put into this one. And last but not least, like number 11 on my top 10, put...
Cheetah.
Way
10A.
too much. Yeah, like 10.1 Stellaris Console Edition.
I am shocked that this didn't make your top 10.
It's so close. But like I spent so much time on this year. It came out in 2019. And it sort of didn't put it in my top 10 because it's not a new game, but it is new. So I didn't want to unofficial number 11. I sort of finally get the appeal of 4X games, and it's like when Diablo 3 came out on consoles, where it's like, oh, you found the way to make these things work really well on consoles. Now I can sort of see, like when Tropico came out on consoles too, where it's like, cool, you managed to make this work. That is incredible and dangerous. How dare you? Thank you.
Yes.
So, Stellaris I talked about it a lot this year. Stellaris Console Edition is really great. They managed to take this giant 4X game and smush it down into consoles, make it run really well, and keep it feature complete, even though it is, some patches behind. But I spent so much time in that game. It's so good. All right, those are our honorable mentions. Before we get into our personal top 10s, let's talk about you as a community, the games you've chosen this year. A ton of people voted for this year. So let's talk about
Thank you, everybody who did vote.
Yes, especially thank you, everyone. Number 3 is a tie between Control and The Outer Worlds.
The Worlds, not Wilds.
Worlds, not Wilds. The Obsidian game, not the spaceship
Mobius
game. The other spaceship game. So those came in neck and neck with a good amount of votes there. Number 2, The Outer Wilds.
Interesting.
Yes. And
Did
number
those people confirm that's what they were voting for?
yeah, no one wanted their
Okay.
I was surprised nobody wanted their votes changed. That was a deliberate choice.
I hear it's a good game, but
Yeah.
a lot of confusion.
Yes.
Yes.
Number 1 with a bullet, far outpassing everything else. Resident Evil 2 remake. I'm
Understandably.
understandably, but as the votes started pouring in, I was sort of like, okay, I'm very glad that there is a vocal contingent of the internet that is very, very passionate about that game. Resident Evil 2 was really great, and I heard the remake was really great, and I'm glad that it
I
made the
love
top of your
Resident
list.
Evil 2, and over the last 2 days, I have almost bought that game 5 different times.
Right.
Boston, maybe now is a good time to start getting into horror games, you big baby.
Yeah, I don't know.
Come on,
It's $23 for the deluxe edition on PS4 and Xbox One.
Man, I don't know.
And it was voted Community Game of the Year for 2019. Maybe one should go and buy it and then play it for yourself. And then maybe next year's best old game can be Resident Evil 2 for you, Boston.
There you go. Tune in 2020's top 10 to find out.
If Boston is a baby. Spoiler alert, yes,
yeah.
he is.
I'm still a big chicken. All right, let's start on our top 10 at number 10. Moonpier, what is your number 10 game of 2019?
There is kind of a theme throughout my top 10 this year, mostly. Mostly the bottom 5, if I'm honest. Which is games that did things differently.
Okay.
Number 10 for me is Tetris 99.
Ah.
Because they made a Tetris Battle Royale game, and it works really well, and it's stupidly fun and stupid addictive, and I'm glad that Switch is not my Switch, because if that Switch was my Switch, I wouldn't be talking about Dead by Daylight, I wouldn't be talking about anything else, I'd be talking about Tetris 99, and how many people I knocked out in my 4 slots. Like,
The true killer game.
Right.
I don't know how they did it. I mean, the announcement came out, like, it was a shock announcement at the end of last year into the beginning of this year. And they're like, oh, here's Tetris 99. By the way, it's a battle royale game, and it's Tetris. That sentence in itself made everybody scoff. Like, this thing is the stupidest thing on the face of the planet. Spoiler alert, it is the stupidest thing on the face of the planet. Double spoiler alert, it's super duper fun. Like, I don't know how they did it, but it brings that battle royale experience, which is the thing I loved about PUBG when I started playing that. It's that slow ramp of tension. Like, you start off and you're calm, you get to halfway and your heart rate's gone up just a little bit, you get to the top 10 and you're starting to get the flop sweats a little bit and stuff like that, and then you get to the top 5 and it's quadrupled, and then by the time you win, your heart is through the roof and you're just like so tense, and then you win one and it's like this explosion of endorphins all at the same time, except it doesn't take an hour to get from like 99 to 1. It takes like 5 minutes because people are gods at Tetris apparently. Like, it's ridiculous how good people are at this. I love Tetris 99. Like, the fact that it's a free game on Switch, or you just need to be on their online thing. Like, do you want to talk about the killer app for Switch this year that started this year right for them? It was Tetris 99.
Yeah.
And that's my number 10. Mr.
All right,
Nimp.
Nimp, how about your number 10?
All right, my number 10 is crowd favorite Anthem.
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, there's something I forgot to put on my honorable mentions.
Yeah.
So, for me, when I bought this game, I bought it for $20 on sale months after it had come out. And I think $20 is a good price for this game, especially how broken it still was when I was playing it.
Spoiler alert, still is. And I was playing this as recently as like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. But the reason why it's on my list is even though it is broken, I still had a lot of fun with it. And I could see what they were trying to accomplish with it. They didn't even get close to some of those things.
Yeah.
But they got close enough with enough things for me that I enjoyed it. I liked being able to fly around. I liked being able to run around, shoot things. I liked that you had an open area that you could go into to just explore and look at. But yeah, this game was never going to get higher than 10 on my list if it made it at all.
Yeah.
So that's my top 10, or that's my number 10. Sorry.
My number 10 this year is Kingdom Hearts 3. Honestly, ending up way lower on my list than I would have thought, and largely because 2019 is really good, but also because Kingdom Hearts 3, it's a miracle that it's out, and it's a miracle that the Sora story has come to its conclusion. But it's as with every Kingdom Hearts game, it's not entirely successful at what it's setting out to do. Kingdom Hearts 3 is in an unenviable position of trying to tie up loose ends of about 170 previous games in the series.
Yep.
It's not entirely successful, which I can't fault it for. It looks great, it sounds great, has a ton of content, has a little too much content, has a little bit too much flash, has a little too many mini games. Like there's 2019 was an embarrassment of riches when it comes to quality games to choose from, and I think Kingdom Hearts 3 very much feels like it's a victim of a very large team with a robust toolset in Unreal Engine 4 that they made too much stuff.
I mean, how quickly in the combat did you decide you didn't want to ride that roller coaster for the 45th time?
There's so much stuff, and Kingdom Hearts 3 just has so much, and I think much of it is good, but not all of it is good, which is really why it ends up at number 10 on my list. Number 9, Moonpier.
Oh, I'll make sure I get the pronunciation right on this one.
Okay.
The Outer Wilds.
Gotcha. The first one.
The first one. The one from Mobius Strip Games. The
Yes.
indie game, not the AAA game. This is indie game storytelling in a very, very, very unique way. Negatives out the way first. The controls are hot garbage.
Yep.
The spaceship controls are particularly hot garbage.
Real rough.
But the unique, it's very much like the Return of the Obra Dinn. Like, that's a game that tells story in a specific way that it's not really been seen before. And I feel like The Outer Wilds does that too. It's so unique in the way it tells its story. It's so unique in the fact that it gives you this chance to be like, why are you stuck in this time loop? What's going on? You hear that star go supernova and you know that your loop's coming to an end. You're like, no, I've got like 4 things left to do here. No. In the end, that's what cost it being higher on my list. Because by the time you're at the end of the game, you just want to sit there and get whatever you're trying to get done. And unfortunately, it took you 12 minutes to get from the start of the loop to there, so now you've only got 10 minutes left. And then you need 2 more minutes after that, and you've got to repeat the whole cycle again to get back to where you just were.
Right.
That's what keeps it so low down on my list. Like, I love the story. I love the fact that it teaches you about interdimensional, like, travel and fourth dimensional beings and all this other stuff that it does is so great. And I don't know how they did it on the budget they did. And again, thank you, Game Pass, for your gifts this year.
Yep.
Like, this is a quality game that's well worth experiencing. Like, period. Like, just go play it. If you don't like it, you don't like it. That's absolutely fine. But there is something really, really special about it just being built the way it's built and formed the way it's formed. Like, it's so unique in the way it does stuff that I just can't help but love it even more for that. Also, this is an Annapurna game. Continuing they're knocking it out the park when it comes to publishing stuff.
Yep.
But that's my number 9. Passing the book over.
What's your number 9?
So my number 9 is Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 on the Switch.
That came out this year.
Guess what's on my games I missed?
Yeah.
My kids and I are still playing this game. We haven't had a whole lot of time with it, but we are really enjoying it. For us, we still have camera issues. The camera just plain sucks for this game. It doesn't help that Nintendo's hardware issues compacted a little bit, but I don't blame it on this game. But it's fun. I'm enjoying it. My kids are enjoying it. This feels like the third game that we've all wanted since PS3, 360. You know, it's really great. If you haven't played it, I would highly suggest checking it out. With the DLC characters that we just got, Cyclops, Colossus, I think a bunch of them just dropped too recently, more X-Men ones.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just fun just checking them out and seeing them and screwing around with them, and I really love it. So that's my number 9.
My
Boston?
number 9 is Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. I think I didn't play it on Switch, so I didn't experience the multitude of performance issues that came out this year. I think the part that I was a Kickstarter backer, and the part that really enticed me into backing the project was the idea that Iga would be taking the torch that he carried, sort of starting from Symphony of the Night and carrying through a lot of the other Metroidvanias he made, and kind of making a new one of those. And I think he did, and it's really great, but he made a new one that's kind of also another one of those. And I think it would have been higher on my list. It's a little unfair, because when you look at stuff like Axiom Verge, we look at stuff like Hollow Knight, that are taking the core Metroidvania experience and sort of turning it on its head, or sort of fleshing it out in really interesting different ways. The good and the bad thing about Bloodstained is it's more Symphony of the Night. Sometimes very, very, very closely Symphony of the Night.
Does it ask you what a man is?
It probably did at some point. There's probably some secret room. But I think that's really great, but I also think it's a missed opportunity for them to kind of break that mold a little bit and kind of stretch that formula and stretch that subgenre into something really interesting. But what they did come out with and what they did make is incredibly high quality. It doesn't have an inverted castle, but the way that they changed the game to make that happen anyway is one of 2019's best aha moments, where you get a move and you're like, oh, I can now re-explore this entire place in an entirely different new way. And that is, there's a couple of aha moments in this game that was great, and that's probably one of 2019's best. So that's my number 9. Mr. Moon, what's your number 8?
Oof. I feel bad for how low this thing is on my list, to be honest. This is Tom Clancy's The Division 2.
Yeah.
It's a hell of a game. I was a big proponent for Division 1, and I think Boston was a big proponent of why didn't I play Division 1 a lot sooner,
Still regretting it.
Yep. Division 2 takes everything that I love about Division 1 and turns it up. Like, the performance is better, the gunplay feels better, the exploration is better, the story is better, the loot is better. Like, there's so much about that game that I love. I absolutely adore Division 2 so much. And it has dangly bits too, and I love me some dangly bits. The downside, it's a games as a service game. I can't play 16,000 games as a service games, and the Division 2 unfortunately fell off my playing rotation sooner than I would have liked, to be completely honest. But at the same time, I feel like I got my money's worth from it. Like, we picked it up day one, and I think I played it solidly for about a month and a half. Like, yeah, it's the same old Ubisoft stuff. It's the same open world, the same collectibles, the same whatever issues you want to throw at it, that's fine. It probably is guilty of that and more. But I love The Division. And I love The Division 2 so much more. The only thing I'm waiting for now is to introduce the roguelike DLC like they did with the first one.
Oh, no.
And then I'll love it twice as much.
Right.
But, I mean, it's The Division 2. I've sung its praises when it was the first game, sung its praises when it's the second game. I do love me some Division. And if they want to take their new, let's take some time and develop more games kind of thing and do it to the Division again, I'm perfectly happy with that. But Division 2, my number 8. Bucket her over, Mr. Nimp.
Nimp, what's your number 8?
All right, my number 8 is Kingdom Hearts 3.
There you go.
God, I don't even know where to start with this. So,
Ta-da!
Yeah, I am glad that it did finally come out because this seemed like it was going to be the next Duke Nukem Forever.
Yep.
The thing that everyone wanted, everyone talked about, and it was just never going to happen. And I think Square Enix shot themselves in the foot multiple times by releasing side stories and all this stuff that didn't exactly mesh together or go together, and then try to slam it all together in 3. The biggest reason that this game is so down on my list is also because they took out all the Final Fantasy characters.
Yep.
Yeah. I miss
don't.
Leon.
Yeah, I mean, it's coming out in DLC now, so that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
But, and it's not that I dislike the Disney stuff, because I liked it. That's mostly what those games were to begin with, was you were going to Disney Worlds and checking those out, and that's still fun. But like you guys were talking about earlier when Boston brought up the roller coaster, the ride summons.
Yep.
Okay, those were all right, but I didn't need. I'm not playing 7. I don't need 9 minutes of Knights of the Round to do the summon.
Right.
So yeah, that's why it's at number 8. It's still fun. I still enjoyed it. I really liked it. My son went through and beat it. He really loves it. We're both kind of looking forward to the DLC that's coming out. But as for story, I still don't know what's going on with this game.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And big shout out as well for being so self-aware on the Final Fantasy trailer as well in Toy Story World. Like they
Forgot about that.
It's such a good moment.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's my number 8. Boston?
My number 8 is Tom Clancy's The Division 2.
Hey.
Largely for the same reason that Moon, you put it on yours, is that it's an incredible game. It has a genuinely enthralling 40-hour campaign that I played single player and had a blast, and then they start the end game on you, and they're like, hey, here's the end game tier 1. There's like 5 more after this, and we just keep adding more stuff on it. I think it looks great. It sounds great. DC is so much fun to walk around without any loading screens or sectors or stuff like that. The stuff you do in the open world was really fun. Like, I'm going from point A to point B, and I just sort of zigzag between cool stuff that keeps happening and stuff I'm looting. And they made an open world that felt big enough, and then they populated it with genuinely really fun things to do that also, in a loot game, rewarded you pretty well.
Yeah.
I just didn't spend enough time with it. Division 2 came out in 2019 as a games as a service game alongside other games as a service games that I was already invested in. Like
Destiny 2.
Yeah, primarily Destiny 2. Destiny 2 doesn't show up on my top 10 list this year because it didn't get... Destiny 3's not out, so I personally didn't score it, worthy of my top 10. Shadowkeep is really good. But I think the Division 2, I really wanted to put Division 2 higher because it is Ubisoft learning from the mistakes of the Division 1 and Destiny 1 and 2 and saying, we are coming out with a game day and date that has an incredibly lengthy story, thankfully that I think is satisfyingly thin on story. It's got enough, but not enough where it's like, here's 3 hours of cutscenes, here, let's tuck in. I just didn't spend enough time with it, but every moment I played with that, I was playing it pretty hardcore about the same time Moon was. Those first month and a half, really great. And I'll probably go back to it when they start dropping the story DLC stuff and sort of get back and see what they're doing. But I really, really loved my time with the Division 2. Just wish it was higher. 2018 was too good.
That's the funny thing about the Division 2 as well, is the Division 2 and Anthem, which should have been on my honorable mentions. I completely forgot to put it on there. They both, when they announced those games, started talking immediately about endgame content.
Yes.
And weirdly enough, I was excited for both of them. Now, whenever someone starts talking about endgame content before the game's even launched, I think, is this going to be an Anthem or is this going to be a Division?
Right.
Which one is it going to be?
Yep. All right, number 7, Moon.
Oh, well, I've already spoken a bit too much about this game, to be completely honest with you, but my number 7 is Descenders. It's a downhill mountain biking roguelike game, go check out my Alpha Protocol Game Award 20 minutes ago to listen to what I've got to say about that. I mean, it's a rare thing when the Alpha Protocol Award happens to also come out the same year.
Yes.
So it makes it to number 7 because honestly, it's like a warm hug. And then I collapse and fall on my face on the floor and kick myself because I lost one of my lives. Like, it's Descenders. Go listen throughout the course of the year. I love this game. This game is way better than it has any right to be, except for Boston.
Right.
For Boston, it's a complete mess. For me, it's perfect. Number 7.
Nimp, you're number 7.
So my number 7 is Remnant from the Ashes.
Oh, right.
Yeah. This game actually kind of surprised me with how much I liked it. Playing it on PC right now, and I fell into it hard day one after I downloaded it. I met up, the Nomad guy that I was telling you guys about. We finally met up on Steam, and we're now friends online. So,
that's the stuff.
But yeah, just like some of the dumb stuff. Like I thought I was being really good with discovering secrets and finding things, and this guy just walks up to a street lamp and he's like, "Hey, did you do this?" And I'm like, "Do what?" And then he shoots something. I'm like, didn't even know that was there. Or like this other area that I went into, there's like this statue area, and there's a creature on top of it, which I noticed. But then all of a sudden, the guy's like, "Hey, shoot this!" I'm like, what? Shoot the guy? And he's like, "No, don't shoot the guy. The statue. Look at the statue." And I'm looking at it. I'm like, "What? It's a statue." And then he starts shooting these little these little chimes on there that I didn't notice. And they turn out to be little bells that you can shoot. And if you shoot them in the right order, it plays a certain tone, and then an item comes up out of the ground.
Yeah.
So this game is like chock full of just random crap where you can't just play it. You have to experiment with something. Just because you've walked into what looks like an empty room doesn't necessarily mean it's an empty room. It's also coupled with the fact that it's got some hard... I mean, it's basically a Dark Souls game. The only difference is you don't lose progress if you die at all. You just go back to the last crystal that you touched, and then you start back over from wherever that was. It's real light in the Dark Souls aspect, but it's real fun, and it's with guns, so having a lot of fun. Even with the mods, the random mod stuff, the crafting in the game, it's just a really fun game, and it really just took me by surprise by how much I enjoy it. So that is my number 7. What about you, Boston?
My number 7, I have to use the full title here, Cadence of Hyrule, Crypt of the Necrodancer featuring The Legend of Zelda. I think Link to the Past is easily one of my favorite, like my top 3 Zelda games. And as we've talked about on We Roguelike It, Crypt of the Necrodancer is an incredible and one of the best roguelikes of all time. And smushing those two exact things together seemed like one of those questions we would get on the show, where you like smush two random things together and we go, "Ah, man, yeah, that would be really great." And then it happened. And the fact that they managed to make both things happen, it's still an incredible run-over-run rhythm roguelike game that thankfully you can turn the rhythm off and still enjoy the game, almost as like a strategy...
turn-based strategy game
yeah,
at
like
that
a
point.
turn. It's crazy. And then still managing to make a 2D overworld map-based Zelda game that also works at the same time is just an incredible... You put two different types of food together and it's the better than the sum of its parts. And it's an incredible game, and it is such I'm hoping monumental beginning to Nintendo loosening up a little bit to say we can trust some people with some of this stuff. We can open some of our products and some of our IPs up to some experimentation, but not necessarily something that we have to do. And I think Cadence of Hyrule is a really great game, and I'm hoping that it's kind of a promise for the future of Nintendo loosening up a little bit. Go play Cadence of Hyrule. It's really great.
Can we agree best music of 2019?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I would say it just the remixes they do of Zelda music and Necrodancer music and weaving them together and then having 5 different versions of each one of those tracks. It's incredible. It's an incredible game. Again, any other year, number 1 with a bullet, no choice. 2018 was stupid good. All right, number 6.
Okay, this is where proof gets real now, folks.
Right.
Please. Actually, you know what? Come at me. Tell me why I'm wrong. Number 6 is Death Stranding.
Okay.
I mean,
honestly, I'm surprised it made it on your list. How hot and cold you got with this game?
Honestly,
also Hot and Cold is one of the guys' names too. Hot and Cold Man.
Hot Cold Man.
Is it really?
No, that's like
that's in another Kojima game.
I'm pretty sure that's actually in Peace
Yeah,
Walker
Hot
for
Cold
PlayStation
Man
Portable. Hot Cold Man is in there.
Yeah.
Which, no joke, seriously.
Yeah.
The reason Death Stranding is not higher on my list is literally because of the Kojima insanity at the end of that game. When I frequently have been talking about this over the past couple of weeks on the show, I have literally been saying, I don't know.
Yep.
The reason I don't know is because, for whatever reason, Delivery Boy Simulation or not, Drunk Baby Simulator, whatever you want to call it, the gameplay loop in that game is incredible. Here is a small mission, you take that package, you deliver it to someone else, you take another package there, you deliver it to someone else. That loop is superb. Mm-hmm. It feels really good, and then it feels even better to subvert that with the upgrades that you get as you go, where it's just like, oh, this thing that took me 45 minutes to deliver from one end of this map to the other, now it takes me 4.2 seconds.
To get to the top of this mountain.
I feel so good, so good to take that and break it, and that's such a great loop itself. And then the story happens. And don't get me wrong, I went down the Wikipedia rabbit hole of the Big 5 extinction events, just like everybody else who played this game did, to read all about those extinction events, and they're cool to learn about.
Yeah.
But Kojima's insane.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to spoil this game so much to tell you why it's not higher on my list, but I won't. I'll let you experience that for yourself, listener.
Experience the last 3 hours.
Oh, the last 5 hours, dude. The last 5 hours is insane.
Yep.
Some of the performances are incredible. Mads Mikkelsen. What is it about that dude? Every time he plays a character, I adore him.
Riveted.
I think he was an incredible villain in Doctor Strange. He was an incredible character in this. Like, whatever is about the dude, he is truly incredible. Norman Reedus is about as wooden can be, but that's Norman Reedus' character and real life persona, so that's fine. It's when you get into the other stuff that the problems begin.
Yeah.
And that's all I can really say. But Death Stranding is an incredible game and a terrible game all at the same time.
All you can really say is, I don't know.
Thank you. Exactly. So Death Stranding takes my number 6. Mr. Nimp, over to you.
All right. My number 6 is Udawari Rumano-zan.
Right.
Are we going into the JRPGs now?
Yep.
No.
Well,
not yet.
Yeah.
So this one is a Muso version. So it's not a visual novel.
Hello.
Yeah, it's a Muso. It was a game I needed when it came out because it was really light. It covered the first season, but it was it was just hitting the high notes. If you want to know about this anime or anything else, don't play this game first because it's just going to hit all the high notes. Mm-hmm. But it was really fun. I just needed a game where I hit square and hundreds of things died in front of me, and this game fulfilled that. And it still kept with the art direction because the anime, the light novels, the manga, the visual novels, they all have that Japanese heavy brushstroke. Mm. And they keep that with this as well.
Like Okami? That kind of style?
Yeah.
Yep. And watercolors. I mean, it is a bright game. The entire series is really bright, even during their dark moments, because the game gets real depressing, all of them. So this isn't a happy ending thing, but it's not gonna I don't know. It's not like Doki Doki Literature Club either. So
Right.
But I mean, it was really fun. All the characters that you would expect to be there are there. You get to play as all of them. And like I said, it's a Musou game. If you don't like Musou games, don't bother checking this one out.
Yeah.
You're not really going to miss anything. It was more of a fan servicing thing for Atlas. I think it was Atlas. Yeah, it was Atlas to come out and say, "Hey, we are still doing stuff with this with Aqua Plus. Just bear with us." So, yeah. So that is my number 6.
My number 6 is The Outer Worlds, not the Obsidian one. 2019.
I felt so bad when I saw you tweet about this a couple of weeks ago.
Well,
Like-
I've warmed up on it over the last couple of weeks. Now that I've
Oh, so you did a full 360? You went
You
180 and then
walked
another 180?
pretty much, yeah.
Walked around, had your coffee. You're good.
The hard part about 2019 is, as I've played stuff throughout the year, my top 4 solidified months ago.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of the stuff was really hard, and I struggled up until 2 hours ago. The Outer Worlds is
I redid some of my list while the show is recording.
Yeah,
just for the record.
Yeah, you can hear me clacking. I'm still moving stuff.
Yeah. The Outer Worlds is Obsidian getting its first real hit without an asterisk. Most of their other games they're really great games, but, and there's a laundry list of mods or fan patches or just Alpha Protocol stuff you have to deal with. Outer Worlds doesn't have any of that. They made a small-scale Mass Effect game that, in a true Obsidian style, your choices genuinely do matter. Whether you knew you were making them or not, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Not a super long game, so play it again. And they nailed it. And I think that's what I was hoping out of a modern Obsidian game, is they took their core competencies that they were good at. They took these inspirations from all these other different games and all these other different genres. They put them together, and they just shined everything and cleaned off the edges. And the Outer Worlds is just a good game. And it's a great Obsidian game, and it's a really solid game. And we've talked about Outer Worlds a lot this year, so I don't have much more to say about it other than it's just good. It's just a good game.
Mm-hmm.
Number 5.
Again, it's so hard. These decisions, this year has been a great year. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. There is games for everybody out there, which is why my number 5 this year is Gears 5.
Aha.
This would be in my top 3. This would be in my top 3 if one of 3 things had happened. I had more time to play the multiplayer on it and to see what that is like. Because unfortunately I haven't as of yet. Spoiler alert, Dead by Daylight takes up all my multiplayer time. I want to see the Horde mode. I want to play more of the escape mode. This is being withheld from being so much higher for one huge reason that's not multiplayer related. It's give me an ending.
Right. Right.
Gears 4 has a teaser for a Gears 5, but that is an ending to a story.
Mm-hmm.
This is literally a finish the fight ending, and I despise the finish the fight ending.
Right.
If it didn't have that ending, this would be higher on my list. Because Gears 5 is an incredible game with beautiful storytelling, well-written characters, great dialogue. The game looks incredible. Mm-hmm. And they did something that Gears needed to do, which is they took it out of the brown.
Yep.
And they stuck it in every other color you want. You've got your blues, you've got your reds, you've got your golds, you've got your browns, you've got your greens, your grays.
Someone graduated from art school and realized there was a color palette.
Mm-hmm. And they nailed it. And some of the stuff that happens in this game is incredible. The lightning storm in the desert is something special to behold, especially in the whole 4K HDR jazz. It's just something truly amazing.
Yep.
The story just literally went right at the end.
Yep.
The last cutscene is just
yeah.
You had the potential to be the best Gears game ever.
You got so close.
and you probably are the best Gears game ever. But my word, do you need to work on finishing the game?
Yeah.
Like, finishing the story. Like, I mean, Gears 5 is incredible. I love the story. I love the storytelling. I love the characters. I love everything about it. They made me care about a robot again, which I haven't felt since BT in Titanfall 2.
Right.
It's really well done. I love Gears 5, and I've had a couple of messages from community members discussing potential Horde mode play dates, which I am 1000% down for. Let's play some Horde. I want to be Jack. Dibs on Jack.
There you go.
But yes, minor flaws aside, Gears 5 is an incredible game. That's why Gears 5 gets 5. Mr. Nimp, number 5.
So my number 5 is The Outer Worlds.
There you go.
All right.
The Obsidian one.
Yes. This game actually caught me by surprise because this is one of 3 games that I was not paying attention to, didn't know anything about, and just on a whim picked it up. And I was like, this is actually really cool. And then realized what it was about.
Mm-hmm.
I was not necessarily in the market for a Fallout / Elder Scrolls / whatever Mass Effect game.
Mm-hmm.
And it really sucked me in. I think for about 2-3 weeks, this was just about the only game I played.
Mm-hmm.
And I really liked the fact that it allowed me to choose how I wanted to go about doing combat. It allowed me to have the choices that I want to, and I didn't have to follow the good or evil path. I was just following my path.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't necessarily good. I wasn't necessarily evil. I was evil. But, I mean, really enjoyed the game. So that's why it's in my 5.
All right, my number 5 is Void Bastards. I'm a little worried we lost Moon, but I can still see him. We're gonna take a quick break here. Moon is having technical issues at 1:07:22. Moon drops.
Oh, come on. Can you hear me?
Oh, we can hear you.
Okay, so you can hear me, but you can't see me. That's
No, we can see
interesting.
you.
We can
Well,
see.
I can see you at least.
Okay, Skype is completely frozen on my end, and Audition has not crashed, but it has stopped recording, so I'm going to save this really quick. And then I will have a big space where the second recording needs to be Boston, just so you can time this up for when we actually need to start again. I might need to restart Skype, unless it's going to let me... yeah, Skype is basically locked up. Like, my entire monitor setup just went black. So I don't know if we had an energy spike or something.
Yeah, maybe.
Well,
Nimp, you keep recording, and then I'll patch it all up in post.
Okay.
Okay, good. I can see you guys again. I'm moving on my Skype screen again.
Are we moving?
Everything. Yes, you guys are moving all good.
How many fingers am I holding up?
Does that answer your question?
It does. I see 2.
Boston, do you want this on a separate track or just later on in that track?
Later on will work.
Okay. Because, of course, whatever the fuck happened did the fucking audio thing with my Audition. It's like, oh, your audio devices have stopped recording.
Thanks.
Yeah, great. Okay, so I'm going to...
At least he didn't do the thing of, hey, we noticed you stopped recording. We're going to exit your program now.
Right. No.
I don't even know what that was. That was terrifying. Okay. Just zoom back in here. Okay. There's my pen. Oh. 18. Okay. I'll manually adjust this after the fact, Boston, and throw in a nice big gap for you. If you can tell me...
1:07:22.
What does it say now on yours, though?
You're at 1:10:1.
1:09:14.
Okay, so yeah.
14. I will try and get it as close to that as I can, so it'll take minimal effort for you.
Okay.
Okay,
If
so it's
you-
about 2
If
minutes.
you can't, then
It'll be pretty obvious because I'm just going to leave a big dead gap with no recording, so that'll be a nice silent section on my track that you'll be able to see.
Okay.
Shit myself down. The last thing I need is a power outage right now.
Yeah.
Okay, and click that. Okay, I'm back.
Okay.
Okay.
Do me a favor so we can line this up. I'm gonna say check, check, check. Right after that, Moon, you say that, and then right after that, Nimp, you say that. Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Check, check, check.
Check, check, check.
Check, check, check.
Perfect. Thank you so much. That should help me line it up. All right. Let's
Or it'll
get.
make it worse, whatever.
Yeah. Either way. All right. Let's get back into it in 3, 2, 1. We had a little bit of technical issues right there, so we took a short break to wrap them out. So let's get back to the list for my number 5, and that is Void Bastards. This was a game I wrote off really early, where it's like, oh, okay, cool, like you're trying to make this comic book game, and it's really going to be great. And boy, they made a comic book game, and it was really great. I think they managed to strike an incredible balance that most roguelikes don't, where they managed to make an accessible roguelike that over time became incredibly deep. It has one of the most satisfying upgrade trees in any game, really. With
one of the most ridiculous as well.
Yeah, and they managed to give you an incredible amount of stuff to upgrade, but very easily tell you what it is and allow you to find where it is and go get it, or just kind of keep a list of things you're looking for. Story is fantastic. Voice acting, there isn't a ton of it, but what is there is really great. And the art style, of course, is fantastic. But I think they do something that most roguelikes don't, and the thing that scares people off of roguelikes is a lot of times death is this big hurdle to get over in roguelikes. Like, a death will wipe out progress, or you have to start an entire thing back over. Great part about Death and Void Bastards is you just start back over. Like, your character gets, hydrated. They plop into the ship that you were on the galaxy map. They're on the ship you died in. Go to the next ship. Keep going. You, of course, if you have a character you built up to being really great, you lose that. So there still is risk in dying, but it never feels like, all right, go all the way back to the beginning of the game and just try to get back to where you were. And I think that's a really incredible thing that most roguelikes get wrong. And coupling that with everything else that Void Bastards did really well is why it was a shoo-in for my number 5.
Yep, that's another one that I forgot to put on my honorable mentions list.
Yes. Go play Void Bastards. It's on Game Pass, as a matter of fact. All right. Let's get into number 4, Moon.
Okay, so number 4 already appeared on list and list respectively. This is the Outer Worlds, the Obsidian one.
Right.
Outer Wild is not on my list twice. This is the Outer Worlds.
Right.
I mean, what can I say that you guys haven't already said? The game is... It's Obsidian executing an Obsidian game.
Yes.
They executed it about as well as they possibly could have done. And I adore the writing in this game. That's something that, all of the positives aside that we've already mentioned on today's episode, the writing in this game is incredible. I do recommend multiple playthroughs. I especially recommend playing through real dumb, because the writing for the dumb stuff is particularly hilarious, and the way people react to you when you say something that's totally dumb is genuinely funny in places. It's an incredible game, and it's a studio that needed a win. We mentioned this on the actual main show earlier this year. It's a studio that needed a win, and I feel like they got a hell of a win in this game.
Yeah.
It has been divisive, to say the least, so far this year. It's a shame that the hammer is patched now, which sucks. because
Yeah.
it turns out it was dealing logarithmic damage instead of like basic simple addition damage. So it was, it was like a 7.8 on the Richter scale instead of 7 plus 8.
Right.
Well, it's a great game, genuine experience, and I played it on the hardest difficulty and still had a blast playing it on that difficulty.
Right.
So give it a shot. The Outer Worlds. It's on Game Pass, shockingly enough.
There you go.
So go give it a go. That's my number 4, Mr. Nimp.
All right, my number 4 is Astral Chain.
Right.
Yep, Platinum Games. I really loved this game. The art style, the music, just saying the music, and I can already think of the HQ music, which had been stuck in my head every time I played that game. The customization that you can do, the unlocks that you can get, it's like an old school game. You can unlock different costumes, setups, all this stuff in the game. No DLC. There wasn't anything to pay for, so that was pretty fun. The gameplay itself, it was pretty fun. It was interesting. I wouldn't suggest doing the 2-player where the one person plays as the main character and the other person plays as the Legion.
Is it you wouldn't suggest it, or you wouldn't suggest it with your very young children?
I would not suggest it in general. It is wonky to say the very, very least. So, but as a single player experience, I really loved the game. The story was, it was all right. It kept you moving along. There wasn't anything spectacular or anything, but it was good. It was fun. I really loved it. So, Boston, what was yours?
My number 4 is Gears 5. I also wanted to put it higher, but I think the unsatisfying ending, especially
Damn squib.
The frustrating part is that Gears 5, the momentum the story has going through the majority of it, you find out a whole bunch of stuff in Act 2. Act 3 has a whole bunch of great stuff. Act 4 is really ramping up to nothing. I think that's a real big mark against this game, but it ends up so high because the gunplay feels snappier than it ever has. The cover shooting still feels incredible. Like it feels like a Gears game that just gets tighter and tighter and tighter every time there's a new one that comes out, and it feels so good to play. And adding on top of that, the different types of weapons you get in like the desert area, like the one that shoots faster as you fire but then starts jamming and starts getting weird, like in Act 2, shooting ice out from under enemies to have them fall into a frozen lake was really great. There's so much good stuff. The stuff that really kept pushing it up my list is kind of twofold. One, I really loved the open world sections, and I think Gears, the 5 previous Gears games, yes, I like Gears Judgment, don't at me, were all really great, but that chapter formula was starting to feel a little bit rough at this point, and I think they put the open world sections, they're not that big, they're not that populous, they're not crazy, but they break up the bookends of the game and then the bookends of those acts in a way that I think felt really fresh and never really bogged the game down, because you could just ignore all that stuff and you can just go from chapter to chapter and just point A to point B. But I liked that there was all this little stuff to do, all these jack upgrades, all these downed ships that you could go get. But most importantly, especially in Act 2, it allowed Gears to finally start diving into their characters more than, come on, and like rip that door and stuff like that. Like, you get this relationship between Kate and Del and Jack, and Kate and Jack, and like, you get so much more out of this game than they've ever really had. And then Act 3 stuff, where you get 2 more characters into the mix, and everybody's really talking about it feels so much different because there's so much friction between all these people in this party, but them starting to unravel that and them starting to deal with that stuff is so much better than the Gears stuff we've gotten, that the foundation of Gears is still there. It's still great to blow up a Brumac behind cover with, an incredibly huge, dumb weapon. And then adding more story and more exploration and more discovery stuff on top of it, to me, makes this such an incredible Gears game. And there's just so many great games this year that it had to only be at 4, but it's such a great game.
And that's something I didn't even think about as well, is like those open world sections allow that character development without the walking down a corridor slowly with your hand
on your
ear.
Anya, tell me more. Yeah.
It allows that development without forcing you to do that, which everybody hates.
Yeah.
It's basically the canoe trip from God of War.
Right.
Yeah. Where you're going somewhere and you're having this in-depth conversation with this extra bit of lore that normally doesn't happen in these kind of games. So
yeah, it's to me, and I didn't even touch any of the multiplayer. I played a couple of like the PvP matches, which all seem fine, but like to me, upping all of that stuff really made Gears 5 special for me. And I love the Gears games, but Gears 5 is really something else.
Yeah.
Oh boy! All right, top 3. Let's hit your number 3 moon.
Okay. Number 3, Apex Legends.
Yeah.
It's a game that came completely out of nowhere, had a real solid start, a real quick downfall, and then a real big spike back up. Like, this has been the roller coaster of video game development in one game in 1 year.
The fastest redemption arc.
With EA having their grubby little mitts all over it, of course, there's problems with that. Mm-hmm. But I play Apex Legends almost every day. For a year straight, I play Apex Legends almost every single day. Like, it's the pros and cons of the Battle Royale format, I guess. Like, it's never the same game. They keep doing special events. Right now, they have a Christmas-themed event going on. Everyone's dressed up as the dumbest Christmas characters ever.
It's so good.
Hey, Watson, let's take an Elfie. I hate you, Mirage, so much.
It's so good.
Like, it's Battle Royale where the characters are characters. They all have their own personalities. They all have their own interactions with one another and stuff like that. It's so good. Like, I didn't expect to be coming back to this game. Like, I thought after the first original downslope, well, actually, maybe it's upslope because if we're using a roller coaster metaphor, that's the boring part. During the first upslope, I thought I wasn't going to be coming back to this game that much. Mm-hmm. And then I did. And then I
hit
stayed.
that corkscrew.
Yeah. And, then we hit the 16,000 back-to-back barrel rolls and everything else that was going on. And the season pass, especially after the first one, the season passes have all been fair. They've all been doable. They've all been enjoyable. Right. And they keep doing ridiculously fun special events. Like the Halloween one where it's like zombies versus heroes, and when you get killed, you become a zombie, and then you have to find the heroes and so on and so forth. Like, the current one is essentially a capture the flag thing, except it's the train on the new map.
Yeah.
And it's like, you have to capture the train. And it's so well done. Like, I can't think of another game, another first-person shooter specifically, where I have been playing a PvP mode and I come back to it time and time and time again. And part of this is also because my wife is playing it, and so is M, and we are having a blast doing it. But at the same time, I've played it with other people. I've played it with randos. I've played it by myself. I've played it with other community members and still had a blast every single time.
Yeah.
Apex Legends is a hell of a battle royale game. Mm-hmm. And mad props to Respawn, again, for making an incredible first-person shooter and an incredible game overall. Good on you guys. Keep it up. Use that Apex money to keep EA off your back as much as you possibly can.
Right.
So my number 3, Apex Legends, Mr. Nimp.
All right. So...
Uh-oh.
No, so when I built this list, 10 through 4 pretty much has been a constant.
Mm-hmm.
3, 2, and 1 have been the things that for the last 2 weeks and through this podcast that I have been bouncing up and down. And I am delaying this right now because I want to make sure that my number 3 is what I want my number 3 to be.
last minute choice.
Yeah. So my number 3 is The Legend of Heroes: Trails of Cold Steel 3.
Ah.
This game, I was so down on this series after 2. And if it wasn't for a couple of people reaching out and telling me to give the demo for 3 a shot, I probably wouldn't have picked this up just thinking it was the same thing, but it's not. The change in perspective that you get, the time shift that you get, the different characters, the different areas that you are in. I mean, I'm really loving the story in this game. I am 69 hours, I think it was, into this game.
Wow.
And I have not beaten it yet. I don't even think I'm close to the end of this game yet. But yeah, I really like this game. And that is a complete 180 from how I was feeling when I was playing the other ones. And I just really like the fact that they've pretty much acknowledged, to me anyway, that, hey, we were trying something with these other 2. Now we're trying something different with this. And this is basically a fresh start. One of the weird things about 3 is that your choices from 1 and 2, they would carry over. From 1 into 2, they carried over. They stopped at 2, though. Any choices that you made in 1 and 2 did not come over to 3. They just cut it off. Which is really weird, because if anyone remembers from earlier this year when I was talking about 2, you had this really weird high school love confession that was really ham-fisted and made me feel really uncomfortable when I did it. Not because it was pervy, it was just embarrassing.
Right.
Now, since they're not taking your decisions into the 3rd game, it doesn't matter that I told Emma that, hey, or I made Reen tell Emma that he loves her or whatever. The way they've combated this is that Reen is kind of a playboy in a weird way. Okay. Not Hugh Hefner so much as he is always never caught up on the kind of relationship end of things. So all the women in the game really like him. And you have the potential to possibly carry it forward. And I think it's kind of really funny and really dumb where they've kind of shifted it so it's kind of a harem again, but not really. But yeah, and just being the way that they did the time shift and how all the characters are slightly older, everyone's slightly more mature. The perspective has changed where you are no longer a student, you are now an instructor. I mean, I just really like this game.
Yeah.
And I was not expecting to like this game at all.
Yeah.
So that is my number 3. Exactly. Yeah. So that's my number 3. What about you, Boston?
My top 3 is the opposite of yours. For pretty much the whole year, it has been solid. And number 3 and number 2 are really close to each other. And number 3 is The Outer Wilds. This is the Mobius one. Largely because this is really the game that I have always wanted. This is an exploration discovery game with 0 combat. There's absolutely no combat here, and the only currency, the only objective is knowledge. And your objective is you are stuck in a time loop. Why? What happened?
Figure it out.
Yeah, figure it out. And the game unfortunately needed to push players a little bit harder to talk to the computer in your ship to say, here are your links, here are the things you need to discover. Start filling out this flowchart link thing. That is your objective, is you went to this place, you still have more to discover, you figured out 3 things, you drew a line to 3 other boxes, those lines fill into other boxes. Incredibly addictive. And just one of those things where it's like, oh, okay, I got to a new place, I read 300 more squirrely things that my wrist computer translated. Cool, I found some new stuff about quantum mechanics.
Yup.
Now I know more about anglerfish, so now I can go to this other place and do this other thing. Obviously, controls are a huge problem. Completely understand if the on-foot and ship controls turned people off. The tutorials in the game that most of us, myself included, missed for a really long time are really good and super easy to miss. And if you tried it and those turned you off, I completely understand. But something about the Outer Wilds and just that discovery and just like it there's not a lot in that game, and there aren't a lot of planets, and each one of those planets isn't very big, but they're dense.
I was going to say that there's not a lot in it, but at the same time, there is a whole bunch in it at the same time.
Like, you first start off by going to the little moon next to the planet you start on, and probably crashing into it and dying, and then starting back over. But, like, the game so elegantly teaches you point A to point B to point C, and then it grabs you, if it does grab you. Like, it grabbed me, and just saying, like, I have to figure out everything in this game. I need to fill out each one of these little boxes and connect them all together and find out what happened to these people and what is happening here and what's that? Can I land on a meteor? Oh no, I can. There's stuff in it. Like, there's just there's so much to it, and then having the ending just break your heart in two and somehow manage to resolve the entire thing is just outstanding. Outer Wilds, I think, Moon, you said it is like the perfect Game Pass game. Just try it. There is nothing to it. If you love it, great. If you don't like it, I totally understand. But I think you should try it, and it might really sort of, it kind of enchanted me. And I think we very rarely run into games where it's like, I'm going to try this thing. Whoops, it's one of my favorite games of all time. You know, we so very rarely get that now, especially for a game that's so different from such a small team. And, man, Outer Wilds is something special, and people should go try it. I think it's really great.
Yeah. Dumb thing about that as well is, really dumb thing, I loved how satisfying it was to land on that stupid sun station.
Yes.
Like, getting your spaceship and landing on that thing is nigh on impossible. And it was so good that you nailed it, and you got in there and just like...
NASA can hire me now. I know how to fly a space shuttle.
Yes.
The worst space shuttle.
I just need to be able to respawn like 50,000 times to stop myself from going into the sun.
That's right. Okay. Number 2, Mr. Moon.
Oh, boy.
This is tough stuff.
Actually, no, not really.
Yeah.
If this wasn't a remake, this would be number 1.
Aha.
It's Resident Evil 2, the remake.
Yeah.
In all of video games that get the re-release and the HD remaster and the blah, 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 we're going to sell this game to you for the 50,000th time. Resident Evil has been released like 4 times, I'm pretty sure.
Resident Evil 4?
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's the same base game. That's not even like remakes with touches up or whatever. Like
they had a re-release of the game still on the PlayStation 1, I think like 2 years later, called the Director's Cut or something like that. Kind of like Resident Evil 1. I mean, it was stupid ridiculous.
And then I'm pretty sure they did the standard HD upmaster, the same thing they did for Resident Evil 1. Again, probably on GameCube, I think that release.
And I was going to say, and it was going to be on the Nintendo 64. Or no, it did come out on the Nintendo 64, didn't it?
I don't know about.
Either way.
2 did, yeah.
Yeah.
But, like, this is a remake that perfectly captures the feel of the original and gives you the memory that you think you had.
Right.
I can't remember what other game it was recently where we played a remaster of something. It's like, oh, it's so great, but it's the memory you have is what it reminds you of, not actually playing the game.
Yep.
Yeah.
And this does that so well. It makes Resident Evil 2 a better game by being remade into an even better game on top of that, because you forget how good Resident Evil 2 was. And the changes they've made along the way to the story and the choices and things like that, like the alligator fight is about 50 times better in this game than it was in Resident Evil 2 originally. Like, it looks amazing. That engine is insane. The things they are doing with that new engine is amazing. The fact that it's the same engine as 7 tells me they've got a bit more verisimilitude than they've had with their engines in the past. Capcom very much have a similar to Square problem where they're just going to use a new engine for everything.
Yeah.
I never thought I'd be excited about Resident Evil 3 remake, but they announced it a short while ago, and I'm just like, yes, give it to me now. I don't care. Give it to me now. Resident Evil 2 is one of my favorite games of that time period. Somehow, they made it even better. Modern controls, modern issues, modern camera. This is the way a remake should be done. And if Square take anything away from this, this is how Final Fantasy VII should make people feel. This is the game I remember, not the game I played.
Right.
Like, they couldn't have done a better job with this remake, I don't think, on any front at all. The liquor cutscene is incredible this time. Instead of being some pink thing on the ceiling, you get terrified by the same stuff. You get nervous when you go into a room and you know something's about to happen because you've already experienced it, and you still get terrified because of it. Oh, and by the way, Mr. X is incredible. He looks cool. And then people have made all the mods for it, and nothing
that Thomas the Train mod with the music.
I just like the fact that people put DMX's X gonna give it to you, and then it literally was sound sensitive to where he was too.
Yeah,
like chef's kisses all around. And get away from me with your Stephen King's It mod that turns him into the scary clown from those movies. Go away, please.
Yeah.
Resident Evil 2 remake, it got Community Game of the Year. There is a reason it got Community Game of the Year. It's a work of art and a masterpiece at what it does. It's number 2 on my list.
Right.
Mr. Nim.
So my number 2 could easily be my number 1, and same thing with my number 1. But my number 2 right now is Control. This was another game that I knew absolutely nothing about. Got yelled at by Moonpier for not buying it day one.
Support Remedy, you cowards.
The only reason I even picked it up was because I had heard that one of the 3 things that the game was based off was the SCPs,
right?
Which I am a big fan of reading those. So when I heard that, I'm like, okay, this could be interesting. And then I played the game, and it is exactly what I wanted it to be, and I really loved it to the point that I platinumed it. Which, if you look at my achievements and trophies, I don't do that very often. So it is a really fun game. It has its issues. The controls aren't always that great. I had the bug in the ashtray maze where enemies didn't spawn in, so I was stuck in there. The pause menu or the map menu bug where everything slows down. Right. So, I mean, it's not a perfect game. However, it does enough really well that I was able to overlook those and not have an issue with it being an issue.
Right.
And I look forward to the season pass that's coming up. I look forward to the DLC or the update that just dropped yesterday.
Yep.
Of the new stuff that you can do with the game. That seems kind of interesting. I would love to see another game of this.
Yeah.
But even if they don't, if just in a Remedy game in the future you just see a reference to the game, I would love that too. I mean, this game, just the atmosphere, the mood, everything about this game is just spectacular. I loved it. So that is my number 2. Boston?
My number 2 is Death Stranding. I have the same problems that Moon does. I think.
You don't know?
No, I know. I know I love it. I also know that the last 4 hours are rough. And I think, obviously no spoilers, because it's still a very new game. Anytime that the game starts to veer away from Sam reconnecting the country, I lose patience. in a way that I usually don't with Kojima games, where I'm willing to take the ride and I'm willing to see where it goes, and it veers off at the last minute into I'm riding, MGS2. I'm riding in the middle of the internet.
Yep.
I can usually go there. I can't with Death Stranding, and there's large chunks of the ending that I think are largely unnecessary from a storytelling standpoint, and it really drags the game down. But to counter it, the actual gameplay and the moment-to-moment deliveries and the avoiding BTs and the tension there and going across America, for me, largely on foot as this relaxing, sort of chill experience was, we joked on the show a couple of years ago about, like, boy, this would be great if you're just, like, delivering packages throughout this whole game. That's exactly what we got. And to me, it's like the Outer Wilds, where it's just like, okay, cool. Like, this was a game that I really wanted, unironically, and it came out, and it's really good. Like, I like the challenges of, how am I going to get this set of packages that weigh 600 kilograms from point A to point B when I can't use my normal tools that I use, and I sort of don't want to use these other tools. So how can I manipulate the game to get me from that point to that point? And it's just, Death Stranding, when you take out some of the ending story stuff, I think Death Stranding is an incredible game that thankfully doesn't get bogged down by this large Wikipedia section at the end. If you sort of remove that from the game, because it largely doesn't matter, the rest of the game is incredible. Expert voice acting, except for Norman Reedus, but he's, like you said, he's just kind of being Norman Reedus.
Yep.
Mads Mikkelsen is great. The guy who plays Die Hardman, really great. One of my favorite performances this year, especially his motion capture and performance capture and facial capture stuff near the end. Just one of my favorite performances in games. Controls really well. The how quickly you learn how to balance your pack on your back, and how some of the animations are trying to tell you what to do, and like, Death Stranding really clicked with me in a way that I genuinely wasn't expecting it to. And we haven't even talked about the mad stuff and the Chapter 4, Chapter 6 stuff where you're...
Yep.
I'm really disappointed that neither of you brought up the 8K monster cans.
Well, those are a given.
Saving that for you when you eventually play it next year.
Yeah. I mean, there are... Death Stranding, you're taking the good with the bad. The wink and nod product placements that are all over the place don't feel great. But it sounds and it looks great, and so many moments that Kojima and his team have crafted where you crest over a hill and you see a town for the first time, and the perfect song starts playing as you're slowly coming down this hill, and like, it ends at the right time when you get into town, when it starts giving you more story. Like, you have the perfect song as you're climbing waist deep up this mountain as a whiteout is occurring. Like, so much of this stuff is so well crafted that you can take the bad stuff, you can take the stuff that just genuinely doesn't work, and I think it balances out really well, and it's one of those games that genuinely really clicked with me, and it's really one of those experiences that I'm gonna fondly remember, where it's like, this is a really great, flawed game that just 100% clicked with me, and I think that's why it is number 2 on my list this year, and I am genuinely surprised by it. But I think for how much I enjoyed that game, oftentimes in spite of itself, I think Death Stranding is easily my number 2 game of the year.
Yeah.
All right, Moon. Your number 1 game of the year.
Number 1.
Yeah. World exclusive.
Like you guys said, like it's a cat's whisker between 1, 2, and 3 for me. Like I could have shuffled them around in any order, and everybody would be completely understanding. If I wanted Apex to be number 1, people would get why. Same with Resident Evil 2. Unfortunately, they're not my number 1. My number 1 is, of course, Control.
That's right.
It's a Remedy game that it's like the Obsidian thing. Like we talked about, like 2 studios that needed a win, and this year they both got big wins.
Yes.
And this is it feels like they finally nailed something without anything externally influencing it. Like I can't help but wonder what could have been with the time travel game, whatever that was called now. I can't remember.
Break.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What could have been with that if they hadn't have signed that deal for the TV show, and then the whole media side of the Xbox One had fallen through as quickly as it did? If they hadn't have done that, what would that game have been? Like, I feel like this is what that game would have been. Like the story they tell, the way they tell it, the collectibles, the controls for Control, shockingly enough, are not ideal. Like there are moments in there that it has its issues where it can feel a little bit swimmy and so on and so forth. But the fact that when you use your TK power and there's nothing around to grab, and she literally rips a chunk out of the wall and you see it coming out the wall, little touches like that make all the difference. And then you look at some of the ray tracing stuff that's on the PC version.
Oh, man.
It's like, okay, I'm not going to blame you for not doing HDR because you're clearly focused on that, and I can kind of see why, because it looks incredible. But I don't know, this game just clicked so well with me. Like the references, the story, the fact that they bring in the Korean fan death thing and turn it into a part of the universe. Like this stuff is so good, and the story is so well told, and it's a great. All of the characters in the game, I would say, are genuinely great. I still don't know what's going on with that leader of the security forces lady, but I sure as hell want to know what's going on with her and why she suddenly vanished. Right. I want to know where she is. Like, give me that in the DLC. Let me see where she is, and let me see what's going on. Because I can't get enough. I want to go back. I want to see these new worlds, and I feel like the DLC is potentially going to be a little too pandering.
Sure.
That's my main concern with what they have announced that's coming out for the DLC. Like, if it turns out that they wrap it in really well, I will adore it. But if it feels like it's pandering to their base audience, I don't know if that's going to change how I feel. The fact that they even threw like Alan Wake references in the game at all, like here is a thermos. This is what the thermos is. Like that
here's
stuff,
a sheet.
Yeah. That stuff is incredible, and I adore this game so much. Like, I don't know how they took one building, one style of art, and made it feel so different throughout the different areas in the game.
Yeah.
I love me a good single-player story, a single-player game where you can start it and you can finish it and you can enjoy it. And I love Remedy. And bias or not, I think this is one of the best games of this year. And then I can't help but feel that extra little bit special when I see that IGN gets it and they respond with a genuinely heartfelt thank you to IGN. Because at the end of the day, to these companies, our game of the year is not going to matter to Remedy.
Sure. It'd be nice.
It would be nice if it did. But me saying Remedy is my game of the year is just like one of the listeners saying it's their game of the year. It's great. And Remedy might appreciate that, but they're not going to see it probably, or they're not going to hear it. But seeing them respond to IGN and knowing how much this game meant to the studio, you know they poured their heart and soul into it. I mean, they've even got all of the legends back. Max Payne is in the game. Alan Wake is in the game. Like, everyone is back, and it feels like this is a culmination of, like, 10 years of Remedy struggling to find their lane and their groove. And it feels like they've nailed it 100%. Control is amazing. Control is my game of the year.
Oh man, do you think it's Remedy's Dark Tower?
Oh man,
Dude,
yeah, maybe.
as long as they don't get up to like Control 7, then I'll be fine with that.
All right, Nimp, what is your game of the year?
All right, my number one game of the year is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order.
Wow. All right.
This game also has its issues with controls. I have fallen through the world before. I hate the sliding in this game with a passion.
1,000%.
Yep.
1,000%.
The game is hard when you play on Jedi Master, as it should be.
Right.
But the story, I know Moonin said it takes a while for it to get going. I'm used to that. That didn't really bother me. I was liking the fact that I could swing my lightsaber around, that I was getting that kind of Dark Souls feeling, that Uncharted Tomb Raider feeling, the Metroidvania feeling of just running around and checking crap out for whatever reason.
Mm.
And then the story hits its beats fast and hard towards the end. And I was fortunate enough not to have it spoiled for me, and I'm not going to spoil it for anybody else listening. But things happen in this game.
Yes, they do.
And that, when things happen in this game, that is probably the happiest I have been with anything Star Wars in a long time.
Right.
That's not to say I hate the movies or anything, but it was just, what happens caught me so off guard.
It's that good.
Yes.
Yeah.
That I was like, holy yes, this is really happening. And it was just great. And I would really love to see what they do with these characters, how they implement them into the Star Wars lore. And I was telling Moon before we started the podcast, I have been ready, but after playing this, I want a KOTOR game.
Right.
Yeah.
And I want it with these characters.
Ah, right.
So, but yes, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. If you haven't beaten it, shut off all social media if you haven't been spoiled on it, and hurry up and beat the game.
Yeah, mute it on Twitter.
Yeah, 1,000%.
Yeah.
I wasn't kidding when I said probably one of my favorite moments in games for the past like 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is my number one. Boston, what do you have?
My number one is Control. As soon as I finished Control earlier this year, my wife asked me, "How did you like it?" And I said, "It's my favorite game of the year. It has been written, chiseled into stone, written in permanent marker ever since I finished it. For all the reasons we've talked about Control so much this year, and you guys just talked about it so much, and I can only echo what you've said. Control is just one of those games that I felt like was made for me, and everything about it was great. Dr. Casper Darling is an incredible character. Jesse is an incredible protagonist. I don't think all the characters are great, but like 90% of them are fantastic. All of the memos feel really great. Thankfully, Remedy did the thing that a lot of these games don't, and they have included boring office stuff into the collectibles. That stuff
Don't
goes
eat the mold.
Yeah, like this stuff goes a really long way into making something like The Oldest House feel like normal people work there as a 9-to-5 job. And
Was that stapler on your desk before you left your desk?
Right, like all of that stuff feels really great, and then coupling that with the mundane nature of that stuff, coupling it with the SCP stuff, which thankfully this game is incredible. You can just list off a bunch of stuff like the flamingo, the traffic light, the fridge, the like
baby carriage.
Yeah,
the ashtray maze.
The ashtray
How
maze.
did I not talk about the ashtray maze?
Which is one of 2019's, one of gaming's strongest sequences, especially because they kind of bait you with the first version of the ashtray maze, where you're like, oh no, it's a maze, and you go back and you're like, oh my god, oh, this is awesome. They're just we talked so much this year about Remedy needing a win and getting it, and I think part of why I think it was time for Remedy to get a win is because they've been working towards this. They've been honing what a Remedy game is for so long. Like, first couple of games are fine. You see it with Alan Wake, where it's like, oh, all right, okay, like Remedy's starting to have a voice. Alan Wake is really great. Quantum Break is really great, but divisive and not always successful. And you look at something like Control, certainly not perfect, difficulty spikes, control issues, but being able to play a game like this, have all the SCP stuff, and have a game that finally gives you powers and kind of lets you be overpowered for the majority of the game.
Levitating overpowers you.
Levitating and just like Moon said, ripping chunks out of the wall and just like one-shotting most enemies in the game. Normally that would get patched out where it's like, oh, I made the game too easy. They're just like, nah, man, like you're ripping stuff out of the wall, like go crazy. Like Jesse is really strong. And I just think Control from front to back is not a perfect game, but I think it's so good at everything it does that even though there's little stumbles here and there, everything in Control is so good. And I completely agree with you guys that I'm sort of torn. I want to see more Control, but at the same time, I just want them to put a bow on it and say, that's it, we're moving on to the next crazy thing. Like, we're never going to stop too long to make a Control 2, and that would be admirable and kind of a bummer at the same time. But with Remedy, it's like, what are you going to do next? Like, what's going to happen? So that Control was early on was my number one this year, easily. And number one, as we've said before, for the entirety of the show, 2019 was too good, and to try and choose 10 of them, nevertheless put them in a list, was probably the toughest it's been in this show's 12-year history.
It feels like it gets harder every year.
Yeah.
Well, I was say because like my top three were games that I either had no expectations for, didn't know anything about, or just figured it was going to be a flop. Like Cold Steel 3, had no expectations, hated the series until I played it. Yeah. Control, knew absolutely nothing about the game until I played it.
Yeah.
Star Wars, I figured was just something that EA was crapping out, which really worried me, especially when they pushed back the reviews to the day of release.
Right.
Which generally in the video game industry doesn't mean it's going to score very well.
It's no good. Yeah.
So all three of my games were just things that sucker punched me into liking them, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah. All right, that is our top 10 for this year. Thank you so much for everyone for listening. This turned out to be a way longer episode than I was expecting, but there was so much good stuff to talk about in 2019. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. This was the top 10, the first of two special episodes this year. Next week is our 2020 predictions. Check those out for a recap of all the 2019 stuff that we probably got wrong, and all of our probably wrong 2020 predictions. And then, of course, as we do every year, we will crown most correctest of 2019. That will come out next week. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. We'll see you next week. Bye.
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 And thank you so much, everyone, for watching. Apologies for our technical difficulties here, but we have the internet to deal with, so this stuff happens.
Merry Christmas.
There you go. And we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.